Hi, welcome. I'm Marilee. I brought you along with me to the park today to talk about spiritual gifts. If you're a follower and a believer in Jesus Christ, He's given you spiritual gifts that He wants you to use to bless other people with. Paul the Apostle wrote in 2 Timothy 1:6, I'm writing to encourage you to fan into a flame and rekindle the fire of the spiritual gift God imparted to you. Paul wrote 2 Timothy while he was in prison, awaiting execution, and he wrote 2 Timothy to Timothy, who was like an understudy to Paul. He was being trained to take over Paul's ministry when Paul was gone. And Paul wrote this verse to encourage Timothy to fan the flame of the spiritual gift that was within him, not to let it die out, not to let it lie dormant, because it was there for a purpose. We've been given spiritual gifts for a purpose by God, but they have to be developed and used. They have to be searched out within us. They don't come just all wrapped and ready to unwrap and be used immediately. They have to be opened and used over and over. And as we grow in the Lord and mature in Him and use these gifts, they will grow and they will sharpen. So, a story in my own life. I used to live in fear of speaking to people, especially to groups of people, especially if I didn't know them. I remember having anxiety facing such a situation to the point where I wouldn't be able to do it. And I had a very uneasiness and discomfort of speaking to people that I did not know, even just one-on-one. It was very hard for me, and I avoided it when at all possible. I did work outside the home, and I lived a pretty normal life, but I was handicapped in this area, and I knew it. So, God brought about some circumstances in my life, and this particular example happened in 2013. God had started working on me in this area a few years before, but in 2013 He wanted to bring it to the next level. So I was in a church service one Sunday morning, and the pastor spoke on John chapter 5. It's about the crippled man at the pool of Bethesda. The pool of Bethesda was surrounded by a large patio where lame, blind, paralyzed people would come and lay on this patio, and occasionally the water of this pool would stir, and they believed that it was an angel stirring the water, and the first one into the pool would be healed. Actually, it was like an underground spring under the pool that fed into it and bubbled up occasionally, and that's what caused the stirring. But they believed it was an angel. So anyway, this day, Jesus came to this pool looking for a particular crippled man. And He approached him. This man had been crippled for 38 years, had not been able to walk. Jesus approached him and asked him point blank, "Do you want to be well?" The man hemmed and hawed and said, "Well, I have no one to help me to the edge of the pool. And by the time I get there, there's always someone else in front of me. And I never get healed because I can't get there first." But Jesus looked right past this man's excuses, and he said, stand up, pick up your bed, and walk. And that's what happened that day. The man did stand up. He picked up his bedroll, and he walked away from the pool that day, the first time he'd walked in 38 years. So I went home that day, and this message really touched me. And God wanted to use these verses as an opportunity to bring me out into freedom in using my voice and my words. So, as I sometimes do when I'm inspired, I wrote a poem about these verses. And this is how it goes. The preacher spoke one day on John 5, 1-9, of a crippled man caught in a web of resign. Jesus found him at the pool in quite a bind. You see, doubts and excuses clouded his mind. He wanted to walk, to run, to dance, but didn't see how he had a chance. Jesus inquired, do you want to be well? The blunt question shook the bars of his cell. But this man Jesus, his demeanor, his voice, his words, his eyes, gave the man faith and courage to rise. I see myself in the man at the pool. My list of excuses I've used like a tool that kept me bound and entangled in fear, like speaking in front of people, oh dear. Jesus comes beckoning to you and me. He says, rise and walk, be set free. So, I'm a crafty person by nature, and just happenstance, after this event, I started making a craft that I had not done before. And I made one, and then another, and then another. And I kind of liked them, and I thought maybe I could sell these at craft fairs. And so that's what happened. I started attending craft fairs that fall and to sell my crafts. And lo and behold, when you go to craft fairs, if you want to sell what you have to talk to people that you don't know. And that's what I did. Little by little, I started saying hi, introduce myself, talk about my craft, how I make it, and so on. And having conversation with people. And the fear in me of talking to those I don't know started to dissipate. And God really used these opportunities in me to grow. I did a few craft fairs that fall, and the next year also, and the year after. So, using your gifts, it does not necessarily come easy. It takes work, it's challenging, it takes trial and error, yeah. And it's kind of like a butterfly in a cocoon, breaking free. To me it was, very much so. So, I hope this message may have touched you and blessed you in some way. I'd like to hear from you how God has used spiritual gifts in you and through you. Leave me a comment. Have a great day. God bless. Bye.